In this video, I want to go over an overview of financial analysis, and there will be several components to this. In a lot of cases, most of the time when people think about financial analysis, they think about financial ratios, and that is a portion of this. But there's also other information that I want to make sure that you understand how to look up, how to use, etc. Throughout this video, there will be other videos that I mentioned that I have created. So at any point in time, you can click on those or go back to them and review them. Okay, so why would we want to understand financial information? Well, first of all, you want to be an empowered employee. You do not want to be a person who sits there and lets a situation like Enron happen to you, or a situation like WorldCom, or a situation like General Motors when it tanked a few years back. And so you want to be able to interpret financial information on your own so that you can know that you can rely on your own financial judgment and not be swayed by marketing pitches by CEOs. So that's very important for you to be able to understand that. Also, the more that you understand financial information, the better manager you will be. I have seen so many people in managerial roles that don't understand how their budget is put together. They don't know how to fix something on their budget. They actually seem stymied in a way about how to manage their budget and how to actually follow up on errors and things like that. And so it's really important to be able to understand certain things about how your business works wherever you work. And finally, this knowledge sets you apart from a lot of other people. Like I say, there's a lot of people who are afraid to learn financial information. They don't feel like they can learn it. They avoid it at all costs. And people like that can lose businesses. They can have embezzlement happen right under their nose. And in fact, as you move up in a corporation, for example, the more you will get promoted is based on how much you have a breadth of knowledge. So initially, a lot of times in your career, you're actually looking at somewhat of a niche spot that you're in and things like that. But as you move up, you have to move away from more of the technical knowledge of your role, and you have to understand things like budgets and financial ratios and various other aspects of the business that maybe you didn't go to school to actually learn how to do them. So it's really important to do that and to be okay with it and embrace it, because the more you move up, the more you have a comfort level with these other aspects of a business, the more you can set yourself apart from your competition in going for those jobs. Now, one thing as part of financial information is looking at product cost structures. Now, the reason we want to look at cost structures is because of the fact that margins are incredibly important in a business. So, for example, I have worked for many companies where the financial people in the organization set margin rates that they like to try and meet. So, for example, when you look at an income statement and you look at that product revenue line, and then you look at the cost of goods sold, and then you look at that net margin, that gross margin that is at the top of the income statement, everything that goes into producing or delivering your products, services, goes into those items right there, the first couple of lines. And so now usually you're not able to find exactly how much a company paid for X product or Y product or anything like that. That's usually a very private piece of information. But you can deduce certain things about cost structures by looking at certain pieces of financial information. Now, especially if you do not work for the company, you probably will not find out exactly how much it costs to produce this product, whatever product it is. If you work for the company, it's a lot easier. You can actually call the accounting department and have them sit down and explain it to you. So how do we find it if we don't work for the company? Well, some possible sources of this information is to look at a 10K report or an annual report. Now, these can often be found on a company's website, and you need to look for an investor relations area of the company website. And when you look there, you can find those usually for a publicly traded company, and you can also find other supplemental information, which can be really good, because if they report on segment reporting, meaning that, let's take a retail establishment, maybe they have revenue that's segmented by stores. Maybe they also have a segmented revenue that is by franchises that they sell, or other kinds of arrangements that they have. So companies oftentimes can have several different departments or several different divisions within them. And if you can find a segmented revenue statement of some kind, you can actually get pretty close to having a pretty good idea of what the margin is on something. So let's say that you are interested in working for Microsoft. Now, Microsoft doesn't always produce things. Now, they produce software, but I would imagine software, there's not a lot involved as far as the cost. There's a lot of intellectual capital that goes into that, but unless you're talking about the Surface, where you've got all these different parts and pieces that come together, you can find these usually by looking at segmented reports. Now, for example, I have worked for Starbucks, but there are some people who've never worked for Starbucks. So if somebody's interested in working for them, one of the other things that you can do is to Google perhaps product cost information or manufacturing information about a company. So for example, there on a Google search, I actually found a pretty interesting video about the manufacturing process of Starbucks and how they bring in green coffee, how they manufacture it, all that sort of thing. That gives a pretty darn good idea of how exactly costs go into that. Now, Starbucks also has on their website in the investor relations area, they have some segmented revenue statements and things like that. Plus, if you look at the 10K and look through it for segment reporting, oftentimes you can find stuff about their products, perhaps some of their major ingredients that go into it, things like that. You can probably find some. You'll probably never find all of it, and you'll probably never get like a cost per unit or something like that. You have to sort of interpolate this information, but it's always good to know. The other place that you can go is the How It's Made channel on YouTube. There's lots of companies that are profiled out there, lots of different products, and that can give you a pretty good idea of what a product takes to make it. Either way, you will have to make an educated guess as far as what a product cost structure is. But you would want to make some sort of a determination of what you think it could be from direct materials, direct labor, and any indirect costs. Second, there are many manufacturing companies that will either have a job manufacturing process or a process manufacturing process. And what that means basically is that if you have products that are coming off of a production line and they are pretty much the same, they look the same, there's very little variation between them, most likely you're going to have a process-oriented manufacturing process. However, if the product is highly customized, customers can have different colors, they can have different materials, they could have, who knows what, then that is probably a job shop where they can actually price things per job. Next, here we go, financial ratios. Now, I have several videos that I've already done about how to actually do financial ratio analysis, and I will have them listed in the description below. Also, sometimes what you want to look at are industry ratios. Now, I've listed a link here to industry ratios that can also be found on the description below. And even though I'm telling you to calculate, at a minimum, calculate things like current ratio, quick ratio, and debt to assets ratio, gross profit, net profit, those types of things, you're not always going to find those specifically for an industry. However, if you do find something that actually has consolidated industry information, you can calculate those on your own, especially if you have income across those industries that's consolidated, or gross profit margins that are calculated and summed across all of those businesses in a particular industry. So you can kind of back into it that way. And also, industry ratios can be found in the Hoover's database. Now, Hoover's is something that you pay for unless, of course, you are at a college campus. And if you have access to a college campus library, you should be able to get into the Hoover's database, and it's free on college campuses. And so there you can also find a lot of industry data. Now, as far as actually doing the financial ratios on a particular company, 3 years of financial data for publicly traded companies is on finance.yahoo.com. All you have to do is fill out the ticker symbol and pull the data. Now, in order to sometimes find industry ratio information, you need the NAICS code. Now, all I did to find the Starbucks NAICS code was I Googled it. I said, what is the NAICS code for Starbucks? And so when I Googled it, it told me. So, for instance, on the bizyahoo.com above where it talks about industry ratios, you'll have to put in that code or at least know how to get to it in order to find out information about that industry. Now, also, I have a template for financial ratios. I have a link down below to where you can download that from my website, and that can be useful as far as like telling you specifically what to pull from the financial statements for the ratios. Horizontal and vertical analysis, all of these are, I have a template that you can download from my website, and all of these will use data that's from finance.yahoo.com. So when you put in that ticker symbol, you should be able to pull income statement and balance sheet information for the company that you're analyzing. I have videos that have been created for that, how to build that, and the template follows along with exactly how to do this. So please download those and watch the videos that I have, and that will help you with that part. All of this analysis basically tells you, what else do I want to know? Okay, so after you analyze all these ratios and horizontal and vertical analyses, sometimes there will be a ratio that it's like, oh my gosh, how come it jumped so big between one year to another? Or what are the reasons why it dropped so significantly? Those are the things that you're going to have to look at the 10K or the annual reports to be able to figure out. And so you may have to Google on some different search terms, or do an edit find on the 10K or annual report and look for certain pieces of information. And eventually, as you read more of these lovely documents, they're actually not terribly hard to read. It'll get where you actually find some very interesting information there. So as you look in these documents, you will find, oh, okay, so the fixed assets went up so much because they bought a business, or they divested of a business or something like that. And so the 10K or the annual reports are going to tell you exactly why you're seeing some sort of an anomaly. In fact, when you look at Starbucks from, I think it was 2012 to 2013, their profitability was really low, and it was very unusual because they typically are really consistent with their income, their net income and gross profit. And as it turned out, if you look at the 10K, it is because they had a large payment that they had to make for litigation between Starbucks and Kraft. So they wanted to get rid of a contract that they had. Kraft fought them in court, and Starbucks had to pay up. Overall, this is your goal. I want you to really be comfortable with, would you invest? This is a big question. We oftentimes, give over our power to mutual fund companies, and we hope that they know what they're doing as far as like investing in different companies and things like that. But you should also know, would you invest in this company? Because a lot of times when you participate in a 401k, you are investing in that company. And or if you have stock options, or if you have stock that you earn for profit incentives or things like that, you want to know whether or not you want to hold on to that stock when you earn it. And so learning how your company operates is really, really, really important. As an employee, would you also be proud to work there? Are you aware of how companies will utilize their resources? How do they build sustainability into their business? All these kinds of things you can actually find out by looking at their financial statements and various other documents that they have on their website. And so this is a really great exercise to actually learn how they approach things. And ultimately, the biggest goal is for you to be able to assess for yourself financial information. In fact, I have data, and I will create a video real soon about this, but General Motors should not have been a shock to people. The fact that it went under should not have surprised anybody because their overall financial performance was eroding so quickly and so fast from quarter to quarter. It was just getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And especially when you get as leveraged as they were, even you can know that, okay, if you've got way much more debt than you can handle, things are not in a good spot. And so I want you to not give away your power to other people. I want you to be in control of your own decisions. And so therefore, that's why I want you to look at these, do this analysis, practice it as much as you can, and I promise you, you'll be better for it. If you have any questions, please leave them below. I'll be happy to help out, and I look forward to seeing you on another video.